Welcome back to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast, a show all about inspiring smart, busy women to put their happiness at the top of their to-do list. Join your host and life coach, Dion Thompson, as she chats with amazing women who have figured out how to make their happiness a priority, and more importantly, what it's really like to go from hot mess to awesomeness. And now, on with the show.
Welcome everybody to the Hot Mess to Awesomeness podcast. I am very excited. I'm always excited. We're in the 20 something episodes here, and I've listened to some of my, the replays, and I'm like, I sound very excited in every episode because I am, because this is truly the highlight of my week. This amazing opportunity that I get to connect with phenomenal women now at this point all across the country, and to be able to chat about the journey from going through the shitstorm and getting to a place where we feel more confident about ourselves no matter what is getting thrown at us. So I'm extra excited to have Tara Filteau with me today, who I have known you for not long enough, and every opportunity that I get to connect with you has been phenomenal. I've learned a little bit more about how amazing you are and the contributions that you're making to your community. And my, one-sided, one-person opinion would not do it justice. So I wanted to just share with everybody a little bit about you. So Tara is the founder and CEO of Mother, Daughter, Empower. She is a wife and a mom of 3, and she is super passionate about community, which led her to run for municipal politics in 2018. By the way, that's huge. That takes a lot of real commitment. And through all the adventures that came with her campaign, she took the opportunity to bring her eldest daughter with her to many public outings and events. There she noticed that the exposure to such experiences were both empowering and shaping her daughter's future. So the following year, she felt that she needed to do more to encourage and support girls everywhere. And with her entrepreneurial spirit lit and her eldest daughter by her side, Mother, Daughter, Empower was born. And we are all grateful for that. As a mom of girls, I am so excited for everything that you are building, and looking forward to when we can get together and have all those hugs and high fives and girl ugly cries and all the good things that go along with that. So welcome, Tara. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was such a beautiful introduction. Thank you.
So, we were chatting a little bit before we hit record, and of course we got our little groove on with the dance party, which I love. And you, of course, as you can see, if you can't see because you're listening to this podcast, then so Tara's in her car, and so she was doing a lot of that, what we are all very used to, like that good share dancing, and the vibe was brilliant. So, lots of things going on in the world now. So whenever you may be listening to this, so this is recorded just at the end of June, and the world is doing its best to open up and find its way, and a lot of other things sort of going on inside and on top of that. And what we were briefly talking about was that although this is a huge undertaking for all of us, and women especially in this community, this is not our first go with hard times or with challenges, and with our experiences comes knowledge and insight, and sometimes we negate or we ignore, we don't notice how the skills that we actually bring to the table when we're facing uncertainty and change and confusion and frustration and anger and resentment, like all the things. And there is a part of us that knows when to kick in and how to make, how to pull things together and keep our family strong and to keep ourselves strong. And that is definitely what I've seen from you, Tara, as you've continued to show up for your community and continue to show up for your family. I'm excited to hear what brought you to this place. So let us know a little bit about your journey and what sort of inspired you to follow your passions in the community and not-for-profit and really the social enterprise.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting, I in my early 20s and my late teens, I had somewhat of a music career, and I traveled the East Coast right after I was done with college and university, in which I studied communications. And I thought I would become a journalist at that point in life, and ended up touring the East Coast, and I ended up getting a job in fundraising. And I really enjoyed it, and I stuck with it for a few years. And it's funny how we kind of just fall into some things that are meant to be. So after I met my husband and I had my first daughter, I knew that I didn't, that I wanted to be close to home. I didn't want to keep traveling and keep pursuing a career that would, make me leave home all the time and whatnot. So I kind of shifted things a little bit, and started working within the nonprofit area, and it kind of just fell through with the fundraising experience that I had. I worked with some of Canada's largest nonprofit organizations, and through that, on it was my last maternity leave, when I started really getting involved within my community. We moved from the city to a smaller town. I live in Innisfil, and started to pay more attention to what was going on. Obviously, this is where my kids were going to grow up. And there was a lot of issues within like traffic safety and around the school zone. And at that point I was at home. So I did have a little bit more time, and I started speaking up a little bit more, attending a lot of council meetings, getting involved with the school, getting involved with different committees. And about a year in, somebody said, you should run for council. And I honestly hadn't thought about that at all. It's like, let me think about this. It's not really something that ever really crosses your mind unless it's an aspiration perhaps that you've had all your life. So for me, it was just really a matter of getting involved, making a difference. And I took that question and pondered with it for quite some time. And I decided, what, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to give it up my 120%. Because as much as I want to get involved, I know nothing about, politics and policies. So after that, I took the full year, and I went to every single council meeting. And I'm very grateful because as of today, the meetings are published and they're streamed on YouTube. So you don't have to leave the comfort of your home, which is really nice. So it's quite the dedication for a whole year. Basically, it was 2 meetings. So every 2 weeks they would have a meeting, and I think they would start at like 6 or 7 and sometimes run until 10 o'clock. And so I would sit there at every meeting and like just absorbing as much as you can. And I ran. And obviously I didn't win, but through that experience, I learned so much. And I learned that I was not only learning for myself, but what I was teaching my kids, like, it was phenomenal. My daughter started asking a lot of questions. What does a mayor do versus what does a deputy mayor do? And these are all things that I had never even thought about when I was a kid. Like, it's not something that would cross my mind. So I was truly exposing my children to kind of this whole other new world, and getting them involved with their community, and also seeing, for them to see their mom really put herself out there, because I don't really think that there's much more you can do in regards to putting yourself out there when you're running for council. You're in the public eye. Anything you say or do could be, scrutinized. Like, you're really putting yourself out there. So it was quite interesting that, they were watching me with big eyes. And I know that when I lost the election, they were much more disappointed than I was. But for them, it was hard, right? Mommy's running, and so after that, I also realized that they were watching how I would react to everything following, once the election dust settled. And it was a great lesson to teach them that you can't always win. You can't always win. And what are you going to do with that energy, and how you're going to react to it is also equally important. So after the election dust settled, I took a few months to kind of, get back to the drawing board and decide, what do I want to do next? Because I just spent, the whole year very much involved and learned so much. And although I was, still working, still working in the non-for-profit industry, I just felt very much called that I needed to be doing something more. And so yeah, I took a few months to really think about what to do, and I didn't know. I honestly didn't know what to do. I knew I was being called to do something more. I had no clue what that would be. And I remember, just like praying every night, please give me a sign. What should I be doing? And one night at 2 o'clock in the morning, literally just sitting there, I call it my aha moment. And the idea literally just came to me. I can't really explain it. But I was just thinking about an organization that brought, mothers and daughters together, all ethnic backgrounds, all religious backgrounds, to come together to empower the next generation. And I think part of that came because a few days before I'd come across a stat that said that boys and girls at the age of 7, their confidence levels are the same, but by age 14, a girl's confidence level will have decreased by 30%, which is huge. And that stat really, really stuck with me. So our mission is, to empower girls, and we're looking at girls ages 7 to 14 so that they can be confident with who they are, and so they can become anything they want to be. And we really, really hope that we can see a difference in that stat within the next generation. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, how it all came to be.
So, I mean, so much learning, so many experiences that you literally packaged into a year and a half or so, and like with 3 small children. So
Yes.
that's a major undertaking, and clearly evidence of you feeling drawn to that. And it obviously spoke to you at a core level, which I think is, it's not something all women are used to doing. Especially young moms or moms of any age. I mean, with children of any age. But
Yep.
it can get really tied into the shoulds and the onlooking, the external expectations, all of that. So
Yes.
I'm really fascinated and excited sort of to hear how, because I know that, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows, I'm sure.
Oh,
So
no.
I'm interested to hear how you manage some of that internal battle, because as a woman in the world right now, we're not immune to the external pressures and social norm and shame culture that we live in.
Yep.
And how you maintained your commitment to this passion, even beyond, and not that winning was the goal, because it sounds to me like it was just the growth and the experience that was really driving you.
Yep.
But to go beyond to a point where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing yet, but I'm still moving forward. So what
Yes.
were some of the challenges for you inside that you had to work through?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, being at home on mat leave with 3 kids, I mean, most people would think that I was crazy to even take on the effort of running. But I think that, you know what, if you don't try, how are you going to find out, right? And I always really try to think back to, like, what's the worst that can happen, honestly, and really, how scary is that? And if you can ponder with that thought, what's the worst thing can happen? And if you can deal with what the worst thing that can happen is, then go for it. Because honestly, you're just going to learn and grow no matter what, right? And I'm a very firm believer that what's meant to be will be. And so I've learned not to dwell on certain things. Like, obviously everyone, everyone's human and you have these emotions. But the faster you can just kind of get over that and continue is what's best. But it definitely hasn't been easy, and it still isn't. I mean, if I look at the work that I do within my community, I mean, from the first delegation that I did to a traffic safety committee that was over 3 years ago. And we're still fighting behind the scenes for these things. So you definitely have to be dedicated and passionate with no matter what you're putting out there, and just don't give up. If you feel like you have a calling, give it a chance. And I think one thing that I've noticed over the years is that for some reason, perhaps, again, society, that type of pressure, is that often we think that we have to have all of our shit together in order to do something. And the reality is that none of us do. Honestly, none of us do. And what goes on behind the scenes, we don't get to see that. So it's so important to if you're passionate, if you feel drawn, just go for it. What's the worst that's going to happen, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what would you say you tapped into to continue to move forward? Do you have specific people you turn to, practices that you engage in? Because I know that, staying dedicated isn't just something you decide and then it gets easy after that. Obviously, every day it's something you have to bring forward. And so what is it that you would do in order to stay committed to you?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I think the first thing is giving yourself grace. It's so important. And I think, as moms, we are superheroes at heart. I mean, just with everything that we do, but just giving us grace to know that there is only 24 hours in a day. And the reality is there is only so much that we can do. And so I know we talk about balance a lot, and it's great to really strive for balance, but you're never going to have that perfect balance, right?
Right.
And so giving yourself grace to understand that, there's days that there's things that are going to fall through the cracks. There's days that weeks or months that things will take the back burner, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that you need to give up on them. Give yourself grace to, your priorities are going to shift. Like even right now, we're in a pandemic. I'm sure a lot of people's priorities have shift right now with what's going on, and that's okay. It's really, really hard because I feel, especially as moms, we deal with that mom guilt that just hovers on it never goes away. But we really do need to learn how to block that out and just give ourselves grace, and we're all doing the best that we can. So just keep reminding myself of that, because I mean, even right now there's some weeks where I'm able to put more effort into the social enterprise, and now while the kids are at home, there's some days where I can't manage to post on social media, and that's just the reality of what's going on.
Right.
So yeah, and so it's not a week or two go by. It doesn't mean that you need to give up. Just you got to keep doing whatever you can, and give yourself some grace.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about Mother Daughter Empower, and tell us how what you've learned most recently has shifted some of the maybe not so much focus points, but maybe the energy that you're now moving forward with the whole initiative and the enterprise.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just celebrated our 1 year in business. So we're just over 1 year. And I mean, we've learned so much in this last year. We kind of did things a little bit backwards. We literally launched, and our first retreat was 2 months after our launch. So we had 2 months to sell our retreat. It was like, go, right? So over the last year, I really did have a chance to kind of take a step back. I mean, our first ever conference was based like just on the verge of selling out before COVID. So I definitely realized in the last year that there is a need for this. There really, really is a need for mothers and daughters to come together. And it's just a matter of serving them in the right way. I think that we're all so busy And so there really is a need to provide that space and time for moms and daughters to connect. And it really gives them a reason to kind of schedule it in, book it in, get your tickets, because life does get so busy. And so, I mean, the mother-daughter bond is so unique and special, and it's really important to, cultivate that and watch it grow. And so we really do want to provide that space and time for moms. I mean, more recently, with everything that's going on, with the protests and the Black Lives Matter movement, I personally attended a march just a few weeks ago, and was very, very grateful to have the opportunity to be there. I didn't know if it was a march that was appropriate for children, so I pondered with the idea, and I'm very happy that I did decide to bring my daughter at the last minute. She was able to join me, and I think it's a day that we will remember forever. And it was just so important to be there and have a better understanding of what's going on, because I mean, I always thought of myself as a person that was, you know, anti-racist, but there's still so much work to do. So that experience in a nutshell was very, very eye-opening. And it definitely made me rethink about, certain things and being more inclusive, and even in regards to mother-daughter empower, but also the community work that I do. I mean, I'm sharing this now, so it'll be official and it'll be out there by the time this, I guess, goes live. But,
Yeah.
it made me question, what can I do, right? Even as one person, I think if each person really stands up and takes that thought and thinks about, like, what can I do as an individual? And I took the time to really sit back and think about, what can I do? And the first thing that we did was, I did an interview, and I hope to ask the questions that everyone was thinking but didn't have. It was like the elephant in the room. But I think they were really important questions to ask. And so I did that interview. I learned so much from that interview. And then I took a step back again and thought, okay, what's next? What else can we do here? And so just this week, I decided that I was going to resign from my position on our local library board, because I really feel like there's, I mean, obviously it's important it's important that there's more of a cultural diversity, and our board is all white female women, and I think there's one male that sits on the board. So I think that it would be, it's incredibly important to have a diverse voice, and I don't think that we have that right now. So in regards to, things that we can do individually, I think we could all take a step back and think about what we can do. And I think that's my way of, stepping up and doing better. And there's still so much more that we can do.
And I agree wholeheartedly. And I think each individual, like with anything else, it's about taking that opportunity to reflect on where we're at and how we're feeling, and processing our actions beyond the habitual or knee-jerk responses, and not just for this circumstance where in Black Lives Matter and the anti-racist, it's not a movement, but the huge spotlight that's is on it right now, which is very deserving. It goes to everything. So I think that
absolutely,
the work that you are doing, and as someone with a voice in your community and across the country, I know that Mother-Daughter Empower is something that is reaching all the provinces, and we are each doing what we can, whatever that looks like, and knowing that as we choose to take steps and as we choose to take action, all that we can do is think about those things and ask ourselves those questions. Is that, what was that like? Who am I in that moment? What have I learned since? What am I planning to do next? And there's one thing that has come very clear to me, and everything that's transpired over the last few months is I cannot focus on all the things that I had done in the past and judge myself inside of that. I have to be able to look ahead and go, what do I want to do now with that information, with that knowledge, with those feelings, and then take action from there, not from a pain or shame standpoint, but really from a space of growth and love, and through that
Yes.
lens of opportunity and potential. And for me, as someone who, as an empath, and as someone who, I'm very cognizant of the energy that I invite into my world. I want to be able to surround myself with other prominent, innovative, and passionate people who have that same perspective.
Yes.
There's work to be done, and there is injustice that needs to be addressed. And from each of us personally, when we do this inner work, approaching ourselves with love is how we are going to make sustainable change. If we approach ourselves with loathing and hatred and anger and resentment, and tie that in, and then that's what we end up creating more of, and that is not what is going to serve the human race. It's just not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's like you said, it's so important to take that knowledge and then just really take some time to think about, what can I do with this?
Mhm.
Even if there's slight change, what changes can I make personally, whether that's in my home or a conversation that I can have with somebody.
Mhm.
I mean, we all have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think even recently with a few things that we see in the media, I mean, it's really important to, I think a lot of people are just so used to getting very defensive,
Mhm.
and then certain things just blurt out or come out, and it's, I think that's a lesson to be learned, to really be able to take it all in and have an open mind, and
Mhm.
just, we don't all know everything, so it's really important to take the time to think about, how we can make those changes within ourselves, as you said.
Right. And I mean, as with all things, even small, minor disagreements, often the disconnect that we feel from others is grounded in our value sets or our value systems, or really what's driving us or what's motivating our behavior and our thoughts. And each person, I truly believe, is doing the best they can with what they have, and it's
Hmm.
making decisions based on what they believe is best for them in that moment, and whoever else it is that they serve, whether it be family or friends or community. And being able to have an open dialogue, I mean, it does require that both parties are willing to engage in that. And as far as what we can do individually, is getting really clear on what's driving us, and then use those drivers to propel ourselves forward. So for many of my friends who are very open and very vocal, their number one core value is justice. And I want these people in my life because they're doing work that isn't necessarily the work that I gravitate to, because my number one core value is connection. And so
Hmm.
I'm pulling the people together to have the conversation, but I need all of the different voices. And by voices, I mean diversity as a whole, but really
Yes.
bringing in people who see the world differently, and who are moving towards different actions and different sort of behaviors that reflect what matters most to them. And then using all of that as a spectrum for growth as a whole is really valuable. And I mean, yes, there are different values that in some circumstances can feel like they're in conflict. But when we come to this place, this sort of chunk up moment, if you will, where it's like, I see why you're doing the things that you are choosing to do,
Yeah.
because that's based on what's important to you and what matters to you, and all of the information that you currently have, and as am I. And so knowing
Hmm.
that we can, the whole idea of I can I can do better and be better once I know more. That
Yes.
includes being open and aware of kind of an understanding of how others operate by getting a clear picture of how we operate. Because I think if you
Yes,
don't know who you bring to the table, there's no way you can have a clear conversation. And
exactly.
right. And so if we come in, emotions first, which is, that's pretty common. But if we don't know why we are feeling the way that we're feeling, or really what's driving us, it can be very difficult to then open up to someone else's perspective and someone else's point of view in order for growth to occur again. And it obviously, that's a bit of a generalization, and coming back to, both parties of a conversation need to be in agreement that they're in a conversation. And now there's so many conversations being had,
Yep.
and or what people think are conversations, which are really just two viewpoints coming at each other to smash into each other. That's different. Anyway, I'm sort of looking at growth as a whole,
As a
beyond,
whole, yeah.
beyond this specific movement, and for me in my work, and what I think is really valuable is that the growth starts this way, right? It starts with us.
Absolutely. It always starts internally. You can't see the outside change unless you start internally, right?
Right.
Yeah,
So I'm really
absolutely.
looking forward to seeing the shifts, and I don't want to say shifts, sorry, the enhancements energetically
Mm-hmm.
to our community as a whole, and mother-daughter empower. And as a member and excited, and my daughter, who still doesn't know that she was going because it was supposed to be a surprise, I made her this little like ticket and everything, but then
Oh,
like, well, I didn't want to give her something and then tell her it wasn't a thing.
yeah,
So
that's
when a new date gets announced, then, oh, this is going to be monumental. And that's something else I was thinking about. So obviously everybody in going through the past few months of isolation, and whatever that looks like as far as what
mm-hmm.
we've been experiencing, and then the spectrum of what moms are experiencing, from being frontline workers and having to isolate from their families to being alone with their families 24/7. I'm thinking a lot about that desire to, if I, for me, I've been home with my daughter, been able to really connect in ways that I couldn't even fathom. And thinking about the world opening back up, I feel like there's be a loss, and I don't want to
Mm.
lose that. And so having a space like Mother-Daughter Empower, that's like a go-to for me, like, so that I can maintain that connection. And then I'm thinking to the mom who has been feeling disconnected, that she too would be looking for an opportunity to get grounded, and create a special space dedicated to the growth and evolution of both of them together. And I'm really so excited that you've created this entity, this space, for women across the spectrum, especially what we're going through right now.
Well,
So
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah, it really is, sometimes again, like, just it's funny how you said you feel like when, things are going to open back up, that you feel that your fear is that there'll be a disconnect. And I think I'm on the other